standing alone under the night sky, sipping wine quietly. Her eyes gaze upward, lost in thought. Noticing him, Aisha speaks up and asks why he's outside and where little Ross is. Leon casually replies that Rossweiss is taking a shower, so he came out for some fresh air. Aisha lifts the wine bottle slightly and offers with a smile, asking if he'd like to drink with her. Without hesitation, Leon agrees. Aisha pours the wine into 2 glasses, mentioning that it's the kind of wine little Ross usually likes to drink. As she hands 1 glass to Leon, he accepts it with a nod and a quiet, "Thank you." The two stand together, the mood calm under the starlit sky. Aisha, her gaze fixed on the night sky, softly recalls that she and little Ross used to drinking and talking together in the same spot. There's a warmth in her voice, tinted with nostalgia. Leon, observing her expression, comments that they must share a deep bond. Aisha nods gently, eyes still on the stars, and begins to share more, how she's watched Rossweiss grow from birth, having spent the past 50 years by her side. Their time together changed when Rossweiss ascended as the Silver Dragon Queen and left their homeland. From then on, they maintained contact through letters, writing to reassure one another of their safety. With a more solemn tone, Aisha continues, revealing that just over a year ago, Rossweiss suddenly wrote to say she had married a quiet and low-profile Dragon King, and was pregnant with his child. Although she is married, she doesn't look very happy. There was a quiet melancholy in her words, an emotional weight that lingered between the lines. Aisha's voice softens as she brings up something Leon hadn't known, something Rossweiss had never told him herself. She reveals that in one of her letters, Rossweiss mentioned how Leon, during that time, was in poor health. He would sleep for unusually long periods and was unable to stay by her side. Though a maid was there to assist, Rossweiss had to endure most of it on her own. Aisha, pointing at Leon, explains as he knows carrying twins is significantly more challenging than bearing a single child, both during the pregnancy and at the time of delivery. Hearing her words, Leon's expression shifts with guilt and sorrow. Thoughts weigh heavily on his mind, how she had been forced to carry the children of her once mortal enemy. Rossweiss went through the burdens of pregnancy alone. The only comfort she had during those long, isolated days was exchanging letters with her sister to ease her heart. Leon silently reflects, during that time, Rossweiss must have lived a life filled with pain, loneliness, and quiet endurance. Aisha laughed as she playfully hit Leon's back, recalling how, at that time, she had thought she married an irresponsible, lazy, and useless male dragon. Leon clenched his teeth as her strike caught him off guard. He turned to her, laughing awkwardly, and asked if he truly seemed like that kind of dragon. Aisha gazed at the sky with a light smile and replied that after spending a short time with him tonight, he certainly didn't seem like trash. There had to be a reason for that. As she looked back at Leon, she added that this only made her more certain that little Ross liked him. Leon, taken aback by her words, stared at Aisha in shock, his mind racing as he thought of Rossweiss's face. He can't believe the thought that she liked him. His heart racing at the thought of she like him. As Leon thought about Aisha's words and recalled Rossweiss's fierce expressions, he shook his head, trying to push the thoughts away. It seemed impossible. How could that vicious female dragon ever like him? Aisha with a smile asks if he's feeling shy. Looking at Aisha, he couldn't help but think that she didn't really know her sister at all. He sighed, realizing that he still had to pretend to be in love in front of her sister. Forcing a laugh, Leon, scratching his head awkwardly, says that she's right, they're in love with each other. As Aisha, placing her hand on him, Leon gets nervous. She says she could tell they get along well with each other. She then looks at Leon and says that little Ross wasn't very good at expressing her feelings, and apart from Aisha, Leon was the first dragon she could treat in such a way. Aisha, looking at Leon, released her deadly aura as she reminded him that as a responsible man who should know what to do in the future without her having to tell him. Leon, taken aback by her, thought to himself that if he said he didn't know, she would definitely kill him here. Leon, with a serious look, assured her that she could rest assured and leave her little sister to him. He remembered how he wasn't able to take care of her when she had her first child. If there was a second child, he would not fail again. With loud determination, Leon promises to protect his wife and children to the death. Aisha, looking at him with a smile, acknowledges his words with a playful warning. She then pushed him away and told him to stop showing off and go back quickly, not to keep little Ross waiting anxiously. As Leon was leaving, Aisha was about to say something again. Leon looked back, asking if there was anything else. Aisha, chuckling, hints that he shouldn't feel restrained tonight, mentioning that the soundproofing in that room was very good. Leon processed her words, looking at her stand silent for a moment with a questioning expression. As he understood what she meant, his face turned red with embarrassment. He then left, quietly thanking her. Outside the room, Leon slowly opened the door and carefully stepped inside, peeking in. He walked over to Ross Weiss, who was sleeping on the bed. Looking at her, he wondered if she had already fallen asleep. Seeing her peacefully resting, Leon smirked slightly, thinking to himself that it was good, he wouldn't have to suffer from her tonight. Leon looked at Ross Weiss's face and, despite everything between them, couldn't help but admit to himself that she looked truly beautiful when she was asleep. As he continued staring at her, something caught his attention. He noticed a faint glow coming from her chest. Taken aback, he questions in his mind why her chest is glowing. A sudden fear crept in as he wondered if the dragon pattern had been activated. But when he looked at his own chest, he saw no reaction, there was no resonance from the dragon pattern on his body. Confused, he tried to make sense of the situation. Carefully, he removed the blanket covering Ross Weiss and discovered a doll in her chest. The glow was coming from that. Suddenly, Ross Weiss opened her eyes and looked at him with a smirk. Leon is taken aback and scared, questioning what Ross Weiss is doing hiding the light bulb under the blanket, admitting that he's really scared. Ross Weiss, showing the doll, explains that she just found it among the small toys on the wardrobe. She thought it was interesting, so she brought it to amuse him. With a mocking expression, Ross Weiss teases him, saying that judging from his reaction, he doesn't seem to think it's a pity. Embarrassed, Leon folds his hands, shakes his head, and denies it. Nervously, he quickly covers himself with the blanket and announces that he's going to sleep, asking her not to talk to him. Watching Leon's actions, Ross Weiss smiles at him teasingly. Ross Weiss holds the doll with a proud expression, warning Leon not to regret it or attack her in the middle of the night. As she leans back, suddenly, a spider appears right in front of her face. Seeing the hanging spider before her, Ross Weiss's expression turns to fear. She screams loudly. Leon quickly turns around and looks at her, asking what happened. Ross Weiss immediately jumps into his arms, and Leon catches her, still unsure of what's going on. Looking at Leon with tear-filled eyes, Ross Weiss explains that there's a spider. Leon, hearing her, recalls that when he was looking through the photo album earlier, he seemed to see a picture of Ross Weiss crying because she was scared by a spider as a child. He begins to wonder if this fear is a lingering trauma from her childhood. Bursting into laughter, Leon finds it amusing that the Silver Aegon Queen is also afraid of tiny things, especially something like a spider. As he moves forward to catch it, he remarks that she really can't do anything without him and decides to help her. Ross Weiss, clearly distressed, urges him to hurry up and catch it. But the moment Leon touches the spider, he senses that something is off. As he examines it more closely, a sense of curiosity and suspicion grows within him. Leon shows the spider to Ross Weiss, pointing out that it's just a toy spider and nothing to be afraid of. As he playfully brings it near her face, Ross Weiss instantly screams in fear. Her fear quickly shifts into anger as she releases her aura. With a sharp expression, she firmly demands that, whether it's real or fake, it must be destroyed. Taken aback by her sudden change in demeanor, Leon hurriedly tells her to calm down, promising to throw it outside. Afraid a fight might break out, he quickly tosses the spider away. With an awkward, light smile, he announces that the spider has been dealt with and they can go to sleep now. But Ross Weiss remains silent, too shaken by fear to respond. Leon sighs, suspecting that the spider must have been part of her sister's scheme. As he glances at Ross Weiss, he wonders if the intention was to make her reveal this fearful and vulnerable side of herself. Ross Weiss, her face blushing with fear, stays silent in response to his earlier words. She looks at Leon with a cute, vulnerable expression, one so disarming that anyone would struggle to resist her. With that look, she can capable of making any demand, and even if it risked starting a war, she would still get her way. Finally, she softly suggests sleeping on the inside while letting Leon take the outside. Without hesitation, Leon agrees, saying she can sleep wherever she wants. They both lie down on the bed, sharing a single blanket, silently staring at the ceiling without saying a word to each other. After a moment, Leon turns toward Ross Weiss and looks at her. Gently, he extends his hand, offering it to her, and suggests that if she's still scared, she can hold his hand while sleeping. Ross Weiss, caught off guard by his sudden words, stays silent as she looks at him. Being a proud girl, she can't just cling to someone so easily, but after a pause, trying to act unaffected, she says that since he said so she'll agree. She then reaches out and holds only his little finger. Leon, surprised, questions how she can feel safe by holding just a little finger. Ross Weiss, her face blushing and with a hint of irritation, responds with a flustered expression, unsure how else she should hold his hand. Leon then places his hand gently over Ross Weiss's and holds it properly. Calling her stupid in a teasing tone, he tells her this is how she's supposed to hold hands. As he looks at her with a light smile on his face, Roswicey turns to him, her expression filled with shock at his sudden action. Blushing, she quickly looks away, wondering how he can hold her hand so casually. A flurry of thoughts race through her mind, if she's the only one who feels awkward about this. Her cheeks flush deeper as she shakes her head, trying to push the thoughts aside. Reminding herself of who she is, Roswicey, the proud Silver Dragon Queen, firmly decides to take responsibility for her actions. It's just holding hands, there's nothing to be embarrassed about. Leon gently asks why her hands are always so cold. Roswicey replies calmly, explaining that she was born with a cold body. Teasing her, Leon adds that her palms are sweaty and asks if she's nervous. Roswicey, flustered, responds that it's him who is nervous, not her. As she slowly peeks at Leon, her thoughts linger on the texture of his hands, covered in calluses and tiny scars, evidence of years spent wielding a sword. They feel a little rough, but also very warm. She tightens her grip around his hand, and where their interlocked fingers meet, it feels as if a faint electric current spreads through her. Her cheeks flush deeper, and she quickly looks away, choosing to remain silent as warmth builds quietly between them. Leon casually brings up her earlier mention of male selection criteria. Roswicey quickly brushes it off, explaining that it was fake and shouldn't be taken seriously. It's been over 100 years, after all. Curious, Leon asks what her standard is now. Roswicey simply replies that she has none anymore. With that, both of them close their eyes, trying to sleep peacefully. But Leon, wide awake, screams internally, he just can't fall asleep. He slowly turns toward Roswicey, peeking at her, wondering if she's asleep. As he adjusts his hand slightly, he notices the numbness in his fingers from holding the same position too long. He thinks to himself that it should be fine to move them a little, just secretly, so she doesn't notice. Roswicey grows increasingly irritated, thinking to herself that if Leon wants to hold hands, then he should just hold hands. And wonders why he's touching her. She turns to Leon with an angry face, thinking that a prisoner dares to touch his master. Roswicey then decides to fight back, thinking that if he's going to touch her, then she'll touch him too. Suddenly, Leon feels a strange current pass through his body, making him twitch. Roswicey moves closer to him, her shoulder pressing against his. A wave of confusion washes over him as he wonders what's happening and why Roswicey keeps touching him. As he continues holding her hand, he suddenly notices how soft her skin is. The area where their bodies make contact begins to tingle, the sensation light and itchy, leaving him flustered and unable to relax. As they lie close to each other, their bodies gently touching, Leon begins to feel strange. A wild, growing hunger stirs in his heart, something he can no longer ignore. Both he and Roswicey start to breathe heavier, their chests rising and falling as the heat between them builds. At the same time, a shared thought crosses their minds, they both really want to take things further. Their eyes meet. Neither speaks, but both silently think the same thing, they want to do something more. Their faces move closer. A deep blush spreads across both of their cheeks. Leon, unable to hold back his urge any longer, throws the blanket aside. He climbs on top of Roswicey, locking eyes with her. As the space between them vanishes, their breath grows heavier, and their minds blur, overtaken by desire. Leon moves closer to her lips, thinking to himself that this is only for tonight. Enjoyed the video? Tap the super thanks to support, it really helps. See you next time.